Welcome back to the Jen White Show. I am beyond honored, excited, flattered by all of your incredible comments and messages that I've received about the podcast relaunch, that episode that I just did. I don't know why I couldn't figure out how to phrase that, where I talked about why I don't have kids, about freezing my eggs and all of that. So thank you all for listening. I mean, you've been incredible. I have loved listening to your messages. I've loved reading your messages and your comments, and you all inspire me to continue to create content that you want to hear and know more about. I'm really excited for today because some of you have sent in audio messages for me to play on the pod. I'm going to play some of those messages and answer these questions and topics. So if you would like to leave me a voice message for the podcast, I've put the link in the description box. It is also available on the main link on all of my social platforms. You can also send me a message or an email, just podcast topic, and I'd be more than happy to incorporate this into the show. And I'd be more than happy to incorporate your question into the show. I also have quite a few women who have reached out who'd love to be guests on the podcast. And I would love to have you, if you want to share your story, send me an email, contact@itsmejenwhite.com, and we will get you set up. We'll do a little pre-interview and have you on the pod. With all that said, let's get into the episode. I need some water first. All right, this first message is from Julie. It was a two-parter, and so I'm going to play the second half, and we'll cover the first half on a different episode.
Solo. I do it frequently. I go to Italy 4 to 5 times a year for work and for my own vacation. But I feel that there are many women who maybe feel that they can't travel solo, because I know that sometimes there's a lot of intimidation about it, but it's maybe giving some tips on how to do it, intelligently and safely, but also having the confidence to go out there into the world, because other women at our age, if they're married with kids, they're not able to do this. So we can't wait for other people to plan. We need to plan it now while we have, probably the income and the health. So thanks so much. Really enjoy your post.
I was very excited to listen to this message. So Julie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I want to talk about solo travel. I'm so excited to talk about solo travel because it is something that I've done and that I will continue to do. And I learned a lot, and I went through all the phases of being nervous. Should I do it? Should I not? All of those things. Now, I'd like to start with the fact that I, throughout my career, have had jobs where I traveled for business, which means I am very accustomed to going to an airport by myself, to navigating airports across, honestly, not the entire world, but definitely the US, parts of Europe. And that part does not intimidate me. That is just normal traveling, getting through an airport. Okay, cool. But what about a solo trip to another country? Well, I've done that. I did that a little less than a year ago. Paris has always been on my list of cities that I wanted to visit. I was waiting to have a boyfriend, a partner. Last year, I decided to take myself to Paris. Now, I had never traveled. I'd never been to Paris. It was on my list. I don't speak a word of French. Okay, I speak one word, and it's poorly. Bonjour. And that's all I knew. But I knew that I wanted to see Paris, and I thought, okay, can I do this? Could I actually go to a foreign country where I don't speak the language and have a great time on a solo trip? So what I did was a lot of research. So first of all, I was like, okay, we're definitely going to Paris. Like, that's absolutely happening. And what do I need to do to prepare? Okay, let's book the flights and the hotel so we're locked in. So the flights were easy. And then the hotel was like, okay, where do I want to stay? I personally don't like staying in the most touristy areas. For instance, like, you'll never catch me staying in Times Square if I have to when I go to New York. And in Chicago, I wouldn't recommend staying. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter in Chicago. But anyways, I'll give New York as that example. And I know, Paris is somewhere that is a highly tourist city. So I did my research and I wanted to use some points. So I have an American Express card. I used points that I had been accumulating, found a really, really nice hotel. I think it was like a 4-star hotel. And I was like, okay, this is in a great area and I'm going to go ahead and book it. So I booked it. I'm like, what do I do for the itinerary? Like, what is different about solo travel? Like, I have no one to bounce ideas off of. Like, where do you want to go? I don't know where I want to go. I want to see all of Paris. Well, it's it's a big city. So I went onto TikTok, I went onto Instagram, and I did my research. I looked at solo trips, I looked at best things to do in Paris, where to eat, where to stay, where to visit, museums, all the things. I also asked my audiences across all platforms. And what I decided was to choose a neighborhood, or I'm going to say this wrong, arrondissement. I know I don't know how to say that. Okay. One day I'll learn a little bit of French. And I said, okay, I'm going to choose, we're going to call it a neighborhood because I'm going to butcher the language completely. I'm going to choose a neighborhood for the day, explore it, and then we'll do another neighborhood the next day. So that was my plan, and I stuck to it. I'm not a big museum person. It's just not my vibe. But I did want to go to the Musée d'Orsay because it's in an old train station. I received a lot of comments and messages saying like, this is where you need to go. So when we look at the planning part, my suggestion for solo travel is give yourself a loose itinerary. Now it's Paris. There's shopping. There's so much shopping and fragrances and history and just so many incredible things to see that it was actually quite overwhelming. So I had certain stores that I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to Polen because I wanted to get some handbags. I wanted to see them in person. There was another place where I got this custom lip gloss thing. I knew I wanted to go there. There were a couple other stores that I wanted to go to. And I wanted to go to the Saint Germain area. I wanted to stop in Le Bon Marché. So I had this list of places I wanted to go, kind of plotted that out and said, okay, Le Bon Marché is near, it's like a massive mall. It's near, it's in or near, sorry, you guys, I don't remember the stuff, Saint Germain du Pré. So I'm like, okay, that'll be one day. I want to go to Polen. They have a couple locations. I'll go to the one in the Marais because that's closest to where I'm staying. And so my first full day, I got there and okay, let's pause. If you're going to a foreign country, search what is the best way to communicate if you don't speak the language. What I learned in my research, and it turned out to be true, is that if you go to Paris, you greet everyone with bonjour. And then they will most likely speak to you in French. And then you politely ask if they speak English. Everyone was so nice to me. I did not have one bad experience in the full week that I was there. And I was respectful and I said bonjour. I later learned bonsoir and merci. And that's kind of all the French that I know. So I'll give you an example. So my first day, I was like, okay, we're going to go to the Marais. It's walking distance. And on my way to Polen, I popped into other shops. I got some coffee. I sat in this gorgeous park and just people watched, and it was incredible. It was so, so wonderful. I did a little shopping. I went and oh my gosh, my first day. Okay, you need Google Translate if you're going to go to a foreign country. I had Google Translate ready. I had it ready and I get to this restaurant. It says it's a Jewish delicatessen. I'm like, perfect, get a sandwich. It wasn't that kind of deli. It was Mediterranean food, which is my favorite. And my phone wasn't working and the menu was not in English. And I was like, okay. I have my huge shopping bags. I'm like such an American walking through massive bags. These two older women were next to me. They were the sweetest. They didn't speak much English, but they helped me put my bags down. And I look at the menu. I'm like, I have no idea what any of these words mean. Now, I studied Spanish in high school and college. It was actually my major for a little while. And I say that because French is one of the Romance languages. I know a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of Italian. So I'm using like prefixes of words to be like, okay, no, I don't want fish. I'm guessing the prefix is similar, whatever. So by process of elimination and based off the prices, because I'm like, is this an appetizer? Is this an entree? I just pointed to the menu. I'm like, I'll have this. She's like, okay. I'm like, and red wine. Like, this is what I know I want. The dish comes and it was amazing. It was a falafel hummus vegetable plate with pita bread. And I was like, I don't know how I pulled this off, but I did. And it was amazing. And then the next day I was exploring another neighborhood and I was spending so much in Ubers. And so I thought, okay, I live in Chicago. I take public transportation here. I've been to New York. I've taken public transportation there. The subway. I've been to London. I have taken the tube. I can go on Google Maps and figure out how to navigate. The thing is I don't speak French, as we've already noted. I was like, okay, I'm going to take screenshots on my phone in case I don't get reception in the like subway part, because if you've never been on a subway, sometimes that happens. You are literally underground. And I really have to look at the words. So I know So again, when we look at tips, I'm walking you through my story to kind of, taking the metro in Paris was so easy. I went to the counter, I got the ticket, and I learned, if you're going to Paris, by the way, keep your ticket with you because you may randomly get checked when you like exit the train, which it happened to me once. And if you don't have your ticket, you get like a €50 fine, and like no one wants that. So it is different because, like in Chicago and New York, you don't need to hold on to your ticket. You just like enter and then you're good. But like in London, you need to scan in and out. And in Paris, just hold on to that ticket. Okay. So I was like, I can do this. I can take public transportation. But I applied the same rules I apply in Chicago. We don't take it late at night. We just don't do that. By we, I mean me. It's the rule for myself. So if you're a solo female traveler, we got to keep our head on a swivel. We got to make sure we know what's up. So I was like, let's try the metro. Now the basic foundations of a metro line are let's say it goes like north and south, or it goes like, the line you have to stand on one side. I figured it out. I tried to act like I was not French, but like I wasn't a total tourist. So I wasn't on my phone. I was paying attention. My brain's like, okay, this is where the next stop is. This is the stop we need to get off at. And I took it to Montmartre, and I got there. And pro tip, if you go to Montmartre and you're like, oh, I'll take the stairs up from the subway. Yep, you're going to get a workout in. There are a lot of stairs in Montmartre. Anyways, so then I explored and I took the metro back. I saved myself a ton of money, a ton of time. It was super easy. And what I love about solo travel is you are on no one else's agenda. You can spend a long period of time in that shop that you just fell in love with. You can sit in that park and read a book or not and just enjoy your time. You can eat lunch early, late. You don't have to go out to dinner. That was the one thing I want to talk about too, is going out to dinner when you're solo traveling. Now, I was in a country where I didn't speak the language, nor did I understand, like I didn't know where I was at. It was my first time there. So what I did is I asked the hotel to set me up with dinner reservations one of the nights. And that was incredible because they did it so well. Like it was a small little bistro, when in Paris, and they welcomed me. And I know they were like, oh, the Americans here. Fine, whatever. I sat down. I had a lovely meal. I didn't talk to anyone because everyone was kind of like speaking in French and they were with their friends or like on a date. And it was lovely. I loved it. But most of the nights, and my friend Dustin got mad at me for this. He's like, why do you keep ordering Uber Eats? I said, because I would wake up, go to breakfast at the hotel. It was gorgeous rooftop. And I would explore for the day, and I'd come back around like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And I was exhausted. Like Paris, like most other European, just like most other European cities, you're walking around a lot. And so I would just chill. Like I'm also on vacay. So I came back to the room. I would get a glass of wine from the hotel bar and order my Uber Eats and watch a show, get up and do it all over again. I did take myself to a show. That was fun. And I just decided, you know what? Again, the hotel helped me out with this. If you want to go see a show when you're traveling by yourself, have your hotel help you out. Use that as a resource. And they got me a center seat. I had a half bottle of champagne, and it was fun. I had a blast. It was so great. And really, you just have to get over the fact that no one knows you're traveling solo, nor do they even care, and just live your best life. It was super fun. So, I guess my best advice for solo travel is pick a place that you've wanted to go. Make sure you do the research on public transportation, where you should stay. Do they have Ubers, taxis, Lyfts, all of those things, and create a rough itinerary for yourself. I am not a type A personality. I don't want every minute blocked. I wanted a guide, I had a destination, and it was absolutely incredible. And I cannot stop thinking about going back to Paris. I will do it, maybe with someone, maybe by myself again. And I cannot wait. Okay, let's listen to another follower message and see what she has to say.
My question for you: how did you start to cultivate a life that you are currently living? When you're in a relationship and then you come out of a bad relationship after you've been with somebody for a really long time, how do you go about starting to live your ideal life, if that makes sense? I'm kind of in that crossroads where I've been in a relationship for a long time, came out of it. I've been out of the relationship for a long time too, but I'm just really feel like I'm stuck. Like, how do I start to begin to learn who I am again? Because I feel like you put so much of yourself into the relationship that sometimes you lose a little bit of yourself. So I'm trying to figure out, how did you do that? Because I know that you have mentioned that you were in a really long relationship and then you're not, and then you started really cultivating a life that you love. How do you do that? What are your recommendations or tips? Thank you.
I love this question. Okay. Thank you for submitting it. I was in a relationship and I know exactly what she's talking about. You lose a little bit of yourself because you're building a relationship with someone. Now, this isn't something that happens overnight and it has to be by choice. And I am sharing my experience, what I did, and how I cultivated this for myself. So I was in a relationship. We were living together. It ended, broke me. I thought that this was my person. I thought that we were going to have kids and a family. And I was like, okay, got it. Figured out what like the next X amount of years of my life are. And then it was time to break up. Again, all for good reason, nothing on him. It was just time for the relationship to end. And this was also this is late 2020. Chicago's still in lockdown. And I'm like, what? This was even more challenging because nothing was open. I moved into a new building. I moved into a high rise, which I highly recommend if you're moving to a big city because it's the easiest way to meet new friends. But I didn't have a chance to meet new friends because it was lockdown life. And so I thought, okay, how do I create a life that I'm happy about and that I love to do? Now, I had already been creating content for many, many years. I had a following on TikTok at the time, and but I hadn't posted in months because I was sad. I didn't know what was going on in my life. I was like, do I really want to keep doing this? I didn't really want to keep creating the content I was creating. It was like very much Amazon hauls, Sephora hauls, things like that, which I still incorporate, but it's not like the foundation of what I do. And so I was like, okay, we have this. We know we have this big audience. That's a hobby that we have. I also knew that I lived in a new neighborhood ish. I lived there before, but on another side of the neighborhood. I love going for walks, and you could still pop into coffee shops. I started, this is where I started my list of things that I like to do. I call it my happiness list, but there was also a list of like, what are things that I just like to do? Not necessarily, oh, I need a mood boost, but what are things that I like to do? And this sometimes comes off the top of your head. Other times you just kind of like need to go through life and figure out, oh, I forgot how much I love baking. Or I forgot how much I love mentoring people. Or I love going for walks. I love taking an Uber to a different neighborhood, walking around and seeing what they have. So I would say step one, identify the things that you like to do. I would also identify the things that you love to do and things that you want to do and kind of start chipping away at that. My advice is to choose something every day that makes you happy, something that motivates you, something that is new. Maybe you're like, I've always been interested in interior design. Download a book, go to the library, start studying, watch some videos, reels, TikToks, whatever platforms out there at the time, YouTube, and start learning about it. And I guess what I'm saying is find a hobby, but find multiple hobbies because you may try one and you're like, not for me. Find another one. But it's every day you're trying something new or you're doing something that you know that makes you happy. Now, another huge part of getting out of a relationship is cultivating friendships. I know that for myself and for others, sometimes when you get into a serious relationship, some friendships kind of go by the wayside. And I think that's natural. Anytime a friend starts dating someone and they start to get serious, I realize, our friendship's going to shift just a little bit and it'll kind of like bounce back eventually, whether they break up with that guy or maybe, they just start to figure it out again. So I would say schedule time with the people that you love spending time with. Sometimes not sometimes, I do have friends who live in other cities that I'm not able to see. So we'll schedule FaceTimes with each other to catch up and talk about things and what's going on. And it sparks new ideas and it makes me laugh. And, it's just like an outlet. I would also, those friends that maybe live locally, just make plans with them. It doesn't always have to be a dinner. It doesn't always have to be drinks. It could be, hey, I'm going to cook this new risotto recipe that I saw online. Do you want to come over and be my taste tester? And now you have social plans. And by the way, we'll talk about friendships in your 40s and beyond on a totally different episode because I know that is a big, big, big topic. And I've been asked that a lot, like, how do you make friendships? But again, it's its own thing. Let's assume you have at least one, maybe two people that you can hang out with. So I would make plans with those friends. And then it kind of ties in, be open to having acquaintances. I find that sometimes we have friends who might be in a relationship, they have a partner, they have kids, they're not as easy to meet up with. Be open to acquaintances. Meet people at your workout classes, meet people at the gym in your building, places like that, so that you have these like micro little, hey, let's meet for coffee after class. Amazing. I just made plans with a woman that I do Pilates with. She's like, I see you all the time. Do you want to grab coffee sometime? I'm like, yes, let's do it. And I feel terrible because I had to cancel because I had some things going on, but it's going to happen. And I've done it before. And also, start taking yourself out. We talked earlier about the big trip. I took myself to Paris, but take yourself out for breakfast. I love going to breakfast by myself, especially at a diner that has a countertop that you can sit at and you don't just have to sit at a table because you can always talk to the server, the people next to you. It's so much fun. So maybe look at your week and say, okay, I'm going to take myself out twice this week. What am I going to do? Okay, Saturday morning breakfast. I love the omelets at this place. I'm going to go there. I'm going to take myself out to breakfast. And maybe the other thing isn't as big. Maybe it's coffee. Maybe it's you're going to go for a walk to your favorite pizza spot and you're going to grab food from there, or your favorite sandwich shop, whatever that might be. And you're going to make a day of it. I personally love shopping. It's not as fun anymore in person, but you can make it fun. There's some areas in Chicago that I can go to and I'm like, oh, I know that I'm going to find some stuff, or just have a great day. And so plan those days for yourself and you'll start to cultivate this. You'll start to cultivate this life for yourself that you're really excited about. And I think that's what it comes down to, is creating a life that excites you. Pick up a hobby, make plans by yourself, and, be open to acquaintances. And you know what? You can do it. I know it's scary. I know it is terrifying. But if you really want to build a life that makes you happy, especially after you've been partnered up and now you're solo, choose things every day that make you happy and choose things for yourself. We should listen to another follower message, right? We should do that. I'm going to answer another follower message. She asked not to have her name or her voice, so I'm going to read you a little snippet of what she submitted. So, for those on our own who've chosen a path of just being on our own for the rest of our lives, who may never find that significant other, how do you suggest handling all of the major challenges that can be thrown at you when you're alone and don't have a support system of a partner? I find that women probably want to know a little bit about everything from handling appearance to navigating major home improvements like replacing a roof to even real estate and what retirement looks like for a single individual. So, let's talk about it. Think, first of all, some women, we have chosen this path. Other women have chosen or have just kind of stumbled into us. I'm kind of the one who stumbled into it. I didn't choose not to have kids. I chose not to settle in a relationship just to have kids, but I'm like loving my life. But there are big things. And I'm so glad you brought this up because, for instance, not yesterday, I've been wanting to get new. I didn't know it was a thing because I just didn't know about home improvements, that I don't like my bathroom. I don't mind the vanity, but I don't like the countertop. And so I was talking to my dad. I'm like, Dad, what do I do? Like, what do I do? How do I change this up? How expensive is it going to be? What are the steps? Like, I have no idea. So I'm lucky enough where my dad lives in the same city as me. And he's like, I'll come downtown and we'll go look at countertops together. And so we went to look at countertops and I found a couple that I like and we're going to start the process. But it's also so intimidating because I'm just kind of like, how does this all work? Like, I don't even know the steps. I don't know how many times in your life you replace countertops. Like, why would I know? So, but I was lucky enough to have my dad. And let's say maybe you don't have a family member or friend, go online, figure it out, and just do it. It is a different experience when you're female going into places like this by yourself, but sometimes you just have to suck it up. I don't know you just have to go for it. Sometimes you just have to go for it. Gosh, we'll talk about this on another episode because I know you have a lot of questions about my gymnastics career, which was interesting, mostly negative, but in my adulthood, I've learned to look at, okay, what did it teach me? What can I benefit from what I learned as a kid? And one of those things is just going for it. In the sport of gymnastics, and I think a lot of other ones, you're about to do this like crazy skill. And you're like, okay, I've done the prep work. I know what I'm doing. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I know what I'm doing. We're just going to go for it. And so I think having that mentality of, I need to replace a roof. Okay, I wouldn't know where to start. But the great thing that we didn't have when we were kids, at least if you're around my age at 43, is the internet. Go on Google, go on the different social media apps, how to replace a roof, what to look out for when replacing a roof, how much does it cost to replace a roof, how do you work with insurance companies? Literally use the internet and ask your friends. Like if you have social media and you're not used to posting, post on your story and ask people like, hey, I'm looking to replace my roof. Who has referrals or anything like that? So I would say, I know it can get overwhelming, like all of these big decisions. Real estate's another big one. You have to find a realtor. How do you know who to trust? Ask your network. Okay, let's start there. Now we have a realtor. They can help guide us through. They are the experts in this. You're getting a mortgage. How do you know? Wiring. Oh my God, wiring money for a mortgage. Was the most terrifying thing ever. It's like, here's all of this money on a wire that they said, make sure it's not a scam. Oh my God, so intimidating. And again, use your network. Even if your friends and family don't live in the city that you live in, maybe they live across the country, maybe in another country, ask them for help. Do you know anyone who's replaced the roof lately? I think the hard thing about well, there's a lot of difficult things, but a challenging thing about being single and you're like, this is me. Like, how do I change? Get a new roof for, using her example, is just using the resources available to you and also just accepting the fact that you are doing this on your own. I'm going to relate this to the smallest thing ever. It just came into my head. So I don't, I mean, yeah, there's some people who maybe like bugs. I'm not one of those people. You see a spider on the wall, you see a bug, whatever it is, right? This happens. You see spiders. When you live alone, you realize real quickly there's no one there to get the spider. There's no one there. There's no one there to, fix the thing, and you have to just figure it out. And so I think it starts with like the spider and then it moves on to bigger things. And you just accept the fact you're like, this is my scenario and we're going to figure this out. There's no one to cry and scream or freak out to. You just have to do it. And I think that's becoming the theme. I didn't think about that before I started this, but sometimes you just have to do it. And the more times you just take that risk, you just start, you go, the easier it becomes every time. It is very difficult at the beginning, but it's like any other muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets and the less intimidating, step by step by step. It starts with figuring out what you're going to do with that spider to planning your solo trip to Paris. And the little steps in between help prepare you for the bigger ones. And if you don't have any, the other part of the question was, what if you don't have any emotional or financial support? This is where, again, it ties into what we were talking about in the previous message, which was be open to acquaintances. I know we always talk about friendships, but be open to acquaintances. And also look at all of your different resources. You have the internet, which we can all find out a lot of information, but there's a lot of different meetup groups. There's a lot of people who want to offer advice, and there's neighborhood groups. There's, I even know in my neighborhood, I'm in the Facebook group, and they'll do community meetings. I've never gone to one, but I could if I wanted to, and meet some of your neighbors. Again, just be open to having acquaintances, meeting new people, because there's going to be someone who knows how to replace a roof, or even like, where do you start with that? And, if you're like, financially, how do I do this? There are resources out there. And, there's also a lot of content creators. I'm not the content creator to reach out to about a roof, that post about that. There's a niche for everything. So get online, look it up. There's also, if you're looking for new friends is a whole. So I would just say use your resources online. I honestly don't know how I would have done it before. Like if it was, and I realize how old this sounds, but before the internet, because I do remember the world before the internet. So you can figure it out. And I love that you have chosen this life for yourself, that you're like, no, I'm solo living. This is what I want to do. This is what's going to make me happy. And you've got this. Take it one step at a time and use all the resources that you have at your disposal. Well, that concludes the episode. I would like to thank you again for all of your support. Please share your ideas. Send me the voice notes. I want to answer your questions. I'm going to have guests on the podcast. I am very, very much looking forward to this. And I love having you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next episode.